we'll be having measures of variability. Now, to begin with, let's have this one. Measures of variability describes the set of scores in terms of their spread or heterogeneity. Meaning, are the scores grouped, like are there the scores close with each other, or are the scores lagyo ilang gap? That's what you mean by their spread or heterogeneity. Consider two groups of scores. Like for example, this one. Group 1, that's 9, 5, and 1. For group 2, 5, 6, and 4. Now, let's consider first the mean. What is the mean of group 1? What is 9 plus 5 plus 1 divided by 4? Divided by 3, I mean. 9 plus 5 is 14 plus 1 is 15 divided by 3, that's 5. So the mean for group 1 is 5. What about the mean for group 2? 5 plus 6 plus 4, that's still 15. Divided by 3, it's still 5. So the mean of group 1 and group 2 are the same. But take note. Look at their scores. 9, 5, 1. Compare that to 5, 6, 4. What can you say about the closeness of their scores? Which scores are probably nearest to 5? Kanang duol sa median, or sa mean, I mean. Is it group 1 or group 2? Look at the scores of group number 2. The scores are 5, 6, and 4. And these scores are very close to our mean, that is 5. If you're gonna go to group number 1, the scores are 5, 9, and 1. And the mean there is 5. Look at the gap over here. The gap from 5 to 9 is 4. The gap from 5 to 1 is 4. Compare that to group 2. What is the gap sa 5 and 6? 1, sir. 5 and 4. 1 pud na, sir. So meaning the gap there is closer. Okay, so take note. Both have a mean and a median of 5. But group 2 has much more homogeneous, or is much more homogeneous, or similar than group number 1. So, variability is simply the spread or dispersion of scores. Measuring variability, there are a few ways to measure this. Number 1 is the range. Number 2 is the standard deviation. And number 3 is the variance. Now, kining 2 and 3, these are just connected. When you solve the variance, after solving the variance, you can solve the standard deviation. Now, we will begin with the range first. The range is the easiest to compute. This is the easiest to calculate. Why? It's because you will be only subtracting. So, take note of this. The range is used when the measure of central tendency is the mode or the median. So, I will be using the range when the measure of central tendency is the mode or the median. Okay? So, take note, the mode is nominal data, or when the most frequent score is of interest. The median, that is ordinal data or skewed data. Now, it's simply the difference between the highest and the lowest score. So, ang formula di ay nato sa range is highest minus lowest. Okay? Now, let's begin with our first example. What is the range in the set of scores below? The set of scores are, that's 7, 2, 7, 5, 6, 5, 6, 2. What is the highest score there? 7. What is the lowest score? Okay, that's so simple. So meaning you will be subtracting 7 and 2 to get 5. So the range for this is 5. Simple as that. That's how you compute the range. Okay? Let's have our second example for the range. What is the range in the set of scores below? So you have there 17, 32, 27, 16, 15, 9, 32, 45, 20, 25, 56, 30, and 42. What is the highest score? 56. What is the lowest score? 9 is the lowest. So using the formula, highest minus lowest, how much is 56 minus 9? 47. So that is how you compute the range. Okay? Now let's go to variance and standard deviation. So variance is simply a measure of the dispersion of a sample, or how closely the observations under cluster around the mean. It is also called the mean of the squared deviations. While standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So whatever is the result in your variance, take the square root of that. That is the standard deviation, and is the measure of variation in the observed values. Okay, let's have this one. The standard deviation, I'll be using the letter S for that, is a measure of variability used when the mean that is normally distributed. So kung range ang gamiton ato mode or median, ang sa standard deviation used with the mean. Okay? Indicates the amount that all scores differ or deviate from the mean. The more the scores differ from the mean, the higher the standard deviation. The sum of the deviations of scores from the mean is always 0. So take a look at this one. This is the formula for the standard deviation of a population. But we will not be focusing on this. Okay? I will not be focusing on this. I will be focusing on this formula. The standard deviation of the sample. The sample variance and the sample standard deviation. Now, let's examine the formula first. So, the formula will be this one. This is the formula for the variance over here. Moni formula sa variance. This one is the formula for the standard deviation. These two formulas are simply connected. Look at this one. It's simply what's inside the radical sign. So you need to solve the variance first, after which, take the square root of the variance. Mo na standard deviation na to. So look at our formula. S squared is the variance. S is the sample standard deviation. X there is the observation, meaning mauni siya yung mga given values nato sa observation sa sample. Okay? Values observation in the sample. Now, X bar is the mean of the sample. N is the total number of observations. Now, let's apply that to our first example. So, in our first example, we have You and your friends have just measured the heights of your cats in millimeters. The heights at shoulder level are 150, 200, 250, 280. Find the variance and the standard deviation. So you make a table with 3 columns all the time. The first column, you write the letter X. In the second column, you write X minus the mean. In the next column, you write X minus the mean squared. Section Zircon, please prepare your calculator there because I'll be asking you questions later on. You give me the answer using the calculator. Now, the values of the x's are simply the heights of the cats. That's 150. You write 150 over here. We have 200. You write 200. You have 250. And lastly, you have 280. So 250 and 280. Now, you cannot fill the first or the second column rather if you do not have the mean. So the first thing that you're gonna do is simply compute the mean first. And by computing the mean, how do you do that? You simply add all the excess. So 150 plus 200 plus 250 plus 280 divided by 2. What is 150 plus 200 plus 250 plus 280? How much is that? You are having it divided by 2 already. So the result here is how much? 800. Again, how much? 600. Is this 680 or 880? 800. This is divided by 4, not divided by 2. Divided by 4. 880 divided by 4. So how much is 880 divided by 4? There you go. So this will be the mean. We will be using this to compute this one, the column, the second column. So let's begin. 150 minus 200 is how much? Negative 70. 200 minus 220. Negative 20. Next, 250 ta. 250 minus the mean, that's 220. That's equal to how much? 30. What is 280 minus 220? 60. Now, section Zircon, kindly add these. I-check na to. What is negative 70 minus 20 plus 30 plus 60? 0. O mo nagipasabot ganiha atong awaha. I'm gonna go back here. This one. The sum of the deviations of the scores is always 0. That's what you mean by that over here. If you'll be adding the deviations, the answer or the sum is always 0. Now, let's go to the third column now. The third column is simply whatever is the result in your second column, square that. So what is negative 70 squared? $70 times 70, how much is that? Okay. What about negative 20 squared? 400. What about 30 squared? 900. What about 60 squared? There you go. Now, the next thing that you're gonna do is add all of these numbers. Katong gipang square ninyo, ang result, ana, you add them all. That is now the summation of the score minus the mean squared. So how much is 4,900 plus 400 plus 900 plus 3,600? How much? 9,000? Okay, so take note of that. That's 9,800. Now, sir, how much is the value of n? How many scores do you have? Oh, therefore, the value of n is 4. Okay, go to the formula. Let's start with the variance. Okay? The formula for the variance is simply s squared is equal to, what is the summation of x minus the mean squared over n minus 1? What is the numerator equal to? 9,800. Divided by what is n? That is 4 minus 1. So what is 9,800 divided by 3? What is 9,800 divided by 3? Okay, how much to... is that a decimal number ang answer or it's a whole number? Check daw. 9,800 divided by 3. 3,000, how much? 0.67. Okay, now this time, do not delete the entry of your calculator. Next, whatever is your standard your variance, to solve the standard deviation, here you go. It's simply the square root of this one. Katong answer sa calculator ninyo, ana, pag humanin yung divide, you take the square root of that. Pila may square root ani niya? Take the square. Yes, how much? 7.56. Oh, this is now the standard deviation. Are there any questions with our first example for the variance and the standard deviation? Is everything clear now about variance and SD? Section Zircon, are we okay? Okay, let's have our next example. Next example, okay, this one. The following data are the number of television sets sold monthly by 10 appliance stores. So you have here the values of the X. By the way, you can arrange that. Pwede na sa dili na ninyo arrange. What do you want? You want to arrange that or as it is lang? Arrange. Okay, what is the smallest number there? 8. So I'm gonna start with 8. Next to 8. We will have 10. Duha ka 10. Next to 10. 12. Next to 12. Next to 14. 15. Next to 15. 22. Then you have duha ka 24. Okay, 24, 24. Let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Kulangan lagi usa. Unsay kuwang ani? 23. Okay, let me delete 1 and 3 there first. Kinatay. Kuwang. Kini siya dapat. This is 23. Thank you for that. Okay. So you have 23. We have 24 over here. Now, we have x minus the mean. Okay, let's compute the mean first. Use your calculator, please. Kindly add all these scores. Pilay sum aning tanan. 162. Divided by how much? How many scores are there? 10. So you have 16.2. Okay? So let's begin. What is 8 minus 16.2? This is negative 8.2. What about 10 minus 16.2? Negative 6.2. What about, this is still 6.2. Okay. What about 12 minus 6.2? 16.2. Okay, negative 4.2. What about 14 minus 16.2? Negative 2.2. What about 15 minus 16.2? Negative 1.2. What about 22 minus 16.2? 5.8. Okay. What about 23 minus 16.2? 6.8. What about 24 minus 16.2? 7.8. What about, this is still 7.8. Next. So we will be having x minus the mean squared. Okay. What is negative 8.2 squared? Square this. How much is this squared? 67.24. Square 6.2. What is 6.2 squared? 38.44. The same with that. That's 38.44. What about 4.2 squared? This one. 17.64. What about 2.2 squared? 4.84. What about 1.2 squared? 1.44. What about 5.8 squared? Again, 83. How much is 5.8 squared? Okay, 33.64. What about 6.8 squared? 46.24. What about 7.8 squared? 60.84. 84. 60.84. Next thing to do, kining atong third column, i-add. Okay, kindly add this now using your calculator. What is, let me write down first, x minus the x. How much is your answer? 369.58. Okay. Pilay n nato? 10. Okay. Let's solve the variance now. Let's begin with the variance first. So the variance is, we have s squared is equal to what is this equal to? The square root of x minus the mean squared divided by n minus 1. So we have, sorry for that, what is the numerator equal to? 306.58. And we have 10 minus 1. So what is 369.58 divided by 9? 41.606. Okay, 41.06. So this is now the variance. Now, let us get the standard deviation. For a while, huh? I'm gonna keep that for a while. Okay. So, what is the standard deviation now? What is the square root of your answer sa calculator? So, okay, let me write the formula first. We have the square root of 369.58 divided by 9. How much is your answer? We have 6.41. This is now your standard deviation. Okay? Any questions about example number 2? Okay, is everything clear about the measures of variability? Okay, now, this is the thing that you're gonna be analyzing when you use variability. If ang number gani ang result gani nato dire, if the result here is close to 0, meaning your scores are very close with each other. So meaning kung ang inyong standard deviation is gamay kaayo, very very close to 0, i-compare nimo another standard deviation nga dako kaayo, asa may imuhang scores nga mas closer? Ang katong gamay ug SD ang standard deviation. Katong dako ug standard deviation, meaning ang scores ana ga-spread ug maayo, lagyo kaayo sila. So that's how you analyze and interpret when you have the results now. So again, if the standard deviation is very close to 0, meaning the scores are close with each other. If the standard deviation is very, very big, meaning the scores are very apart from each other. Dagko ang gap sa scores